Good afternoon. I'm Skip. I'm here with some of my stories of growing up as a Minnesota boy. Yeah, I'm a northern boy. That's got to do with the story I'm going to tell you today. I love my state. I love my country, and I love being part of the North. However, I've been married 3 times. My first 2 times were with northern girls, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. I really can't explain it, and I'm not apologizing for it. My third wife, who's my wife now, was a southern girl. I thought maybe that's the difference. And I'm here to tell you what the difference were. Being from the South, it's like being from another country, believe it or not, when you get to know somebody that well. First of all, it's the language. She has an accent, which was cute then and is still cute today, a Southern accent. But sometimes you have a problem. I'll tell you the first time I noticed it was when I first met her. I had a car that I had blown a tire on. I bought a new set of tires for my car. And the highway we were on, the state had just resurfaced it. It was a blacktop highway. So between the two, made a nice smooth ride. And making small talk, that's what I was talking about, was the new blacktop road and my new set of tires. She responded, and I misunderstood her somehow. And it went on, and to a point where she finally was getting tired of explaining herself and what she was trying to say. And she leaned back in her seat and put her hands on her hip, and she says, "I said tar, T-I-R-E, tar." That explains part of that Southern accent. Okay, now I understand what she was trying to say. There's been other things. You know, everybody has heard the Southern saying, if you want to call it that, of you all. Now, I'm a Northern boy, so to me it's 2 words, you all. But the Southern people seem to have made it into a 1 word, y'all. Kind of like the great city of New Orleans, which is 2 words to most people, but down there it's 1 word, Nolans, something like that. And that's all part of being from the South. You got to learn to accept these and interpret them and go with it. There are other things too in the language. I grew up, and still do, when I walk into a dark room, I turn on the light. And when I leave, I turn it off. She questioned that because she cut the light on, cut the light off. Where did that come from? Well, I gave it some thought. And I think it goes back to some of the first table lamps and that type of lights, fixtures, actually had a little Bakelite black knob on it, and you did turn it. So you were turning the light on, technically turning it, and turning it off. But where did she ever come up with that cut the light on, cut it off? Until I was out on a friend's farm that he had bought. The farm had a new house and a new barn, but there were some of the old buildings there that were really old. And we went into one to look at something, and he said he was going to turn the light on. Actually, I think he said cut the light on. And he walked over to the wall, and there was a switch. It wasn't this big, but it had a blade like this, and it went into a thing, and that's where it made the contact, and all the lights came on in this building. And he called it a knife switch. Oh, And if you went up to an electrician and said knife switch, they would know what you were talking about. It's where it makes contact like that. And you know what knives do? They do cut. Cut light on, cut the light off. That's my theory, anyhow. I'm one to try and figure out all of these things. Sometimes I can't, sometimes I can. There was another incident with the language. We were in the kitchen when we first met and going to have lunch. And I think we're going to have sandwiches or something like that. And she says, "Where's your light bread?" And I said, "Did you say white bread with a W?" Because that's pretty common, white bread, dark bread, rye bread. "No, your light bread." Light bread. Well, now, the word light, I've heard it referred to as a diet thing, like like a light beer. That means it doesn't have as many calories and it's made different. But where did that come from? You know, I still don't know. However, I did get it verified by an expert. I like old movies. And one night I saw one on, I think it was Turner Classics, and it starred a fellow named Will Rogers. Now, he was a master of the English language. He was a Southern boy. Too bad he didn't live very long to get a longer career, but he was a very funny man, and he could do things with the language that nobody else could. Well, in the movie, he owned a mansion down south someplace, and the scene is he's coming into the kitchen from the outdoors. Now, there's a bunch of people having a luncheon meeting at his home, and they were all seated in the dining room, and he asked somebody from the kitchen staff, "You have enough of everything?" And they said, "Yeah." They said, "But I got biscuits coming out of the oven. I don't know if I got enough. What if we run out of biscuits?" And Will Rogers, the master of the English language, said, "Let them eat light bread." There it was. That's good enough for me. There's been many other things in the language that pop up and sometimes create problems. But also, the foods are different. First of all, they like sugar down south. And she likes what they call sweet tea. Now, I like a glass of tea. Iced tea in the summer is great, or a cup of hot tea in the winter. Green tea, brown tea, black tea, any of those teas. But they seem to think you got to dump a whole bunch of sugar into it and call it sweet tea. I don't understand that. There's also other things. One day she said she was going to make me a treat, a specialty of hers. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And she said, "Lima beans and rice." I said, "Lima beans, rice, and what?" She said, "That's it." I had to think about that because nothing wrong with rice. I like rice. It's in itself, it's flavorless. It's like potatoes or white bread or something like that. But you got to put something with it to give it flavor and so forth. She was putting lima beans with it. Now, lima beans, as I grew up, they were, if my mother put them on the table, she had to stand behind me with a 5-pound skillet to get me to eat them. They weren't my favorite. I can eat them now. That's okay. But to consider them a treat just because you mix them with rice. Well, anyhow, I ate it and it was okay. It was okay. But I didn't understand what the big deal was. Another one of her favorite dishes was she mentioned she was going to pick up some nice sweet potatoes she had seen in the grocery store. Now, my experience with sweet potatoes was limited. We had them once a year on Thanksgiving. We'd go to my grandparents' place for dinner, or somebody's anyhow place, and somebody always brought a bowl full of sweet potatoes, and then, evidently to give them flavor, covered the top with marshmallows. Well, I could eat the marshmallows. I never cared much for the sweet potatoes, but that was my total experience with sweet potatoes, and that was not a favorable experience. Then my wife got a sweet potatoes, and one of the things she did was she cut one up and made French fries. I love a good regular potato French fry, but these were even better with a sweet potato. Anyhow, she made a convert out of me about my opinion of sweet potatoes. I can eat them now in several different ways. So anyhow, it's been about 18 years now we've been married. Things seem to be going okay. We have our ups and downs a lot of times because we misunderstand each other. And I found that being from the north and her being from the south is a contradictory in many ways. But they always say opposites attract, just like a magnet, and maybe that's the secret. Thank you. Hope you enjoy my story.